Welcome to the Stellar Vault. Say hi in the comments to awaken the archive. Then like, subscribe, and let the tale begin.
The stars in this sector weren't just quiet. They were holding their breath. Captain Reese Gordon had seen too much to trust that kind of silence. It wasn't peace. It was ominous. Out here, beyond council-patrolled lanes, when the void went still, something was usually hunting. And that's when the signal broke through. Inside the bridge of the TSS Valiant Dragon, the hum of command systems pulsed low and steady through the deck plating. The ship moved at its own crawl, cloaked, weapons offline, scanning open space without a defined target. Then Tyler Spencer, Gordon's tactical officer, and one of the few men he trusted without question, exhaled in a way that wasn't routine. "Got something," Spencer muttered, fingers typing fast across the interface. Buried pulse. Weak. Real old. Doesn't match any current galactic language family. Gordon turned from the forward viewport, dark eyes narrowing. Origin? Outer edge of the Sagira Expanse dead zone, not even on updated star charts. A thread of data streamed across the main display, erratic, flickering between broken harmonics and patterns that didn't quite translate. Spencer leaned closer, adjusting filters. "It's not for us," he said after a beat. "The structure's wrong. Syntax folds inward. Recursive sequence. Whoever sent this never meant for human ears to catch it. Which means they probably didn't expect anyone would." Gordon closed the distance to the console. His presence alone stilled the hum of conversation across the bridge. "Redirect helm? Set course for the signal origin." Spencer replied, "Sir, that's pre-accord territory, and if this was a distress call, it's probably 2 centuries late." "Or right on time," Gordon said. "We're not ignoring it." Orders from Gordon didn't need repetition. Within minutes, the Valiant Dragon angled into slipstream insertion, carving space around itself in a soundless surge of power. And then it was gone. The Sagira Expanse greeted them with wreckage. No welcoming party, no defensive perimeter, just a graveyard in orbit. Dead hulls drifting among slow-burning fractures of once advanced infrastructure. The 4th planet in the system, catalogued in human records as Sagira 4, barely held onto its atmosphere. Orbital stations lay in ruin. Fires etched jagged stripes across the equator. The tactical feed lit up before they finished the deceleration curve. "Unknown vessels," Spencer announced. 10 total. Design pattern doesn't match any council fleet, Terran or otherwise. Hulls are bone white. Weapons are hot. They're circling a crippled comms array. "Do they see us?" Spencer shook his head. "Not yet, cloaks holding." Gordon said nothing for a full second, then, "Scan for survivors, surface only." The AI pinged. 1 lifeform detected. Planetary surface. Faint vitals. Unknown genome. Estimated biofade. 2 minutes. "Lock on," Gordon ordered. "Prep exfil vectors. We're not here for show. We're here to answer." 4 minutes later, high-precision atmospheric needles dropped through the clouds, stealth drones moving like whispers. They pierced the smoke layer, triangulated the signal, and descended. At the base of a collapsed tower, buried beneath shattered crystal and scorched alloy, something still breathed. Not human. No species Gordon recognized. 3 eyes, 1 ruined. Skin like bronze stone veined with liquid amber. Crushed but conscious, and in 1 bleeding hand, an intact memory shard still pulsing faint blue. Drone cams captured the moment the alien's gaze found the lens. He spoke 1 word, broken but clear. "Answer." In orbit, the Valiant Dragon uncloaked. No warning, no hail. The 10 ships circling the debris field reacted too slowly. Targeting solutions locked. With surgical precision, Gordon authorized 2 graviton strikes. The first split an enemy ship at its core, rupturing bulkheads like paper. The second folded its sister vessel in on itself, a slow burn collapse through vacuum. The rest didn't stay to fight. Whatever brought them here didn't include dying for it. As the enemy retreated beyond system range, Gordon's gaze stayed fixed on the surface. The survivor lay unconscious in medbay. The shard was already under forensic scan. What they found wasn't tactical. No weapon schematics, no invasion plans. It was older than that. A plea. A message caught in loop. Not for salvation. Not even vengeance. We ask not for survival, only to be remembered. That night, Gordon sat alone on the bridge, eyes tracing the decrypted pulses, fragmented star maps, glyphs in elegant geometry, and at the center of it all, a system-wide distress call, sent and forgotten. Until now. Gordon turned to Spencer. "This wasn't an ambush," he said. "It was a tombstone." Spencer nodded once. "You think there are more?" "There always are." Outside the viewport, Sagira 4 drifted in slow orbit, scarred but no longer forgotten. And after 2 centuries of silence, someone had finally answered the call. The medbay aboard the Valiant Dragon held a cold sterility, but it wasn't unkind. Its light adjusted subtly to biopatterns. The AI whispered diagnostics in low, respectful tones. The room was quiet, except for the soft hiss of circulators. Captain Reese Gordon stood at the foot of the recovery pod, arms folded behind his back. Beside him, Tyler Spencer reviewed biometrics in silence, one brow raised. The Eliari lay still, slender and long-limbed, built like one shaped by low gravity. Under the scanning field, his skin reflected a dull luster, and faint ridges traced his temples, once bright with energy, now dimmed by exhaustion. But his eyes, they were open. "I don't know your customs," Gordon said, "but I assume if you're staring at me, you're awake enough to talk." The Eliari blinked slowly. His voice was barely a threat at first, soft, gentle, like wind over glass. "I was told humans were abrupt." "You were told right," Gordon replied. "Name?" A pause, then, Adhor Tesh, of the Eliari Protectorate. Tyler nodded slightly behind the captain. "Vitals are stabilizing. Neural activity's strong. He's lucid." Gordon nodded. "What happened to your people, Adhor?" Adhor didn't answer at first. His gaze wandered toward the ceiling, as if listening to something only he could hear. Then he spoke, slowly, softly. "They came without warning, not to kill, to take. They stripped the outer colonies, our research, our core tech. They harvested what they needed, and left fire behind." Gordon frowned. "Who?" Adhor closed his eyes. "We called them gravers, not pirates, not even raiders, engineers of extraction. They dismantled our world piece by piece. We resisted, and then we didn't." Tyler's jaw tensed. "Why didn't your people come back for you?" Adhor's breath caught. "Because I don't know if they're alive." The words landed harder than Gordon expected. There was no bitterness in them. Just weight. "Our colony stretched across distant stars," Adhor said quietly. "Contact broke after the second orbital fell. The beacon you found. It was buried deep, likely reactivated by a tremor. Blind luck." He paused, his eyes distant. "I was in cryostasis, medical rotation. When I woke, I was the last breath left." "You're saying no one from your people ever heard the call?" Gordon asked. "I don't know," Adhor whispered, "but I hope." A quiet hum passed between them, deeper than the ship's machinery. Something unspoken, shared. Gordon glanced sideways at Spencer. How long would it take to boost a long-range transmission past the belt? Tyler scratched the back of his neck. "If we route it through the Sagan array using quantum harmonics, 6 days to sweep the full sector. But sir, if they're gone..." "We're not guessing, Spencer. We're doing what needs to be done." Adhor turned to him slowly. "You would do that? For me?" "You made a call," Gordon replied, straightening. "We answered. That's not the kind of thing you leave halfway." Tyler chuckled. "You'll learn fast, Tesh. That's just how the captain is." Adhor looked between them. For a moment, the exhaustion in his face seemed to lift, replaced by something fragile, but strong. Hope. "I will write the message," he said quietly. in our deep syntax. If they're out there, they'll hear it. Gordon nodded once. Then let's give them something worth hearing. Outside the medbay window, Sagira 4 drifted in quiet rotation, its surface a graveyard of memory and ash. And in the quiet circuits of the valiant dragon, a signal laced with hope began its climb, searching for stars that might still remember. Adhor-Tesh sat upright, wrapped in a soft phase medical shroud tailored to his physiology. The Eliari's skin shimmered faintly under the low light, veins of liquid amber tracing delicate lines beneath. "You're sure you remember the exact array configuration?" Spencer asked, typing across the relay console. Adhor nodded. "We called it the Amkesh line, the thread that binds those not forgotten." "Let's hope someone's still holding the other end," Gordon said quietly. The Sagan array, long considered obsolete, was a low-band, deep-resonance transmitter buried in human archives, a relic like most of what lay beyond Accord-acknowledged space. It pulsed at frequencies well below current comm standards ignored by most systems, which made it perfect. Adhor leaned toward the interface, voice low. "There's a phrase. It won't mean anything to you, but if my people survived, they'll know it." "Let's hear it," said Gordon. Tesh touched the console gently. The translated voice modulator hummed once, sinking to his tone. Then came the words. Soft, melodic, but strangely heavy. "The wind remembers the name of the mountain." The lights dimmed for a moment. Just a flicker. "Was that just system lag?" Spencer asked, frowning. "No," Gordon said, eyes narrowing. "That wasn't us." Somewhere in the deep core of the array interface, a line of unreadable symbols pulsed once, then vanished. Not in error, not in malfunction, like it had been waiting. No one in the room noticed the low hum beneath the primary relays, a sound just below hearing, like a memory of a voice that hadn't spoken yet. Then the array pinged, just once. A return chirp, weak, faint, real. Spencer straightened. "That's a bounce back. Something out there. Heard us." Tesh looked up slowly. He didn't smile, but the tightness in his expression softened, just enough to make Gordon pause. "It means someone still listens," the Eliari whispered. In the silence that followed, the transmission cycled again. Quiet, patient, as if repeating itself for ears that might not yet be ready. Gordon turned to Spencer. "Put the crew on silent operations. If anyone's out there who cares about this signal, we don't want to scare them off." "Aye, sir." They left the lab without another word, but the interface did not go dark. Long after they were gone, the console displayed a glyph, fragmentary, untranslated, and not part of any known array protocol. A symbol no one aboard recognized, a single human eye, drawn in ancient ink, encoded centuries before Earth had ever touched the stars. 12 days passed and no reply, just the same empty stars and the same soft loop of Ador's message, repeating into silence. Gordon had almost stopped checking the signal logs himself when it happened. It came clearer than expected, threaded through layers of radiation, bypassing Terran filters displayed on the Valiant Dragon's interface like a song no one remembered they knew. Adhor-Tesh stood silently at the observation deck. The light on his skin shifted as though his body recognized the language before his mind did. "They heard me," he whispered. "They're coming." Gordon said nothing. Spencer tracked the incoming vectors. 3 ships, minimal signatures, not cloaked, just subtle, like they want to be noticed, but not feared. Moments later, they broke into visual range. The Eliari vessels shimmered like fractures in space. Grown, not built. Elegant, curving forms that moved like they remembered the wind. The lead cruiser adjusted orbit without a single ignition trail. Gravity obeyed. Gordon exhaled. Well, that's an entrance. A soft chime, visual request. No protocol. Just intent. Adhor stepped forward. "Let me." The screen bloomed with pale light. A single Eliari stood framed in the transmission, older, with silver coils of neural symbiont threading down his temples. His voice came like wind through hollow stone. "You survived." Adhor bowed, reverent but unashamed. "Because they came." The alien leader's gaze turned toward Gordon and Spencer. Measured, calm, intelligent. "You crossed the silence. For us." Gordon met the stare without flinching. Seemed like the right thing to do. There was no dramatic speech, no pact, just mutual understanding in the quiet between words. Adhor turned to Reese. There was something heavy in his expression, gratitude shaped like farewell. "I would stay if I could, but we have rebuilding to begin, a long silence to break." Spencer stepped in beside Gordon. "Just don't vanish completely, yeah?" Tash almost smiled. "Only until we're needed." Without fanfare, the Eliari vessels pivoted. No flame, no thunder. They slid through space like memory, fluid, seamless. Gone. The silence that followed wasn't absence. It was peace earned. Gordon turned to Spencer. "Log the encounter, full archive." Spencer raised an eyebrow. "Under diplomatic first contact?" Gordon shook his head, eyes still on the stars. "Under debt paid." Behind them, 3 pulses of light shimmered once, then faded into the dark. The humans had come for a stranger, and the galaxy would not forget who arrived first. 6 standard years had passed. On the surface, little had changed aboard the Valiant Dragon. Same reinforced hull, same precision-tuned weapon arrays, same crew. But deep inside, everything was different. Captain Reese Gordon sat alone in the command briefing chamber, face more lined, eyes just as sharp. A digital dossier hovered over the hollow table. Not a battle report. Something worse. Strategic Compliance Amendment. Human Command Integration pending Council ratification. He read the line aloud, slow and dry. Integration, not invitation. Tyler Spencer stepped in, 2 black mugs of synthcaf in hand. "They're pushing harder." Gordon took one, stared into the steam. "They want uniformity, predictability, something they can file under manageable." Spencer raised an eyebrow. "Because helping an alien race no one else bothered to hear made us dangerous?" "Because it reminded them we still act without asking. Since the Eliari encounter, the Terran Accord had expanded. So had Council oversight. More border inspections, more regulation. And now, veiled behind protocol, a quiet campaign to reel Earth back in. The irony? Whispers said the Valiant Dragon's crew had prompted the new measures. Unofficially, of course. Crossing unregulated space for Adhor Tesh hadn't been forgotten. Or forgiven. Spencer nodded at the document. "We've gone from outlier to problem." Before Gordon could answer, a chime cut through the silence. Bridge comm. "Captain, we've got company, not Eliari, not Council." A pause. Looks like pirate config, but cleaner, confident. Spencer was already moving. "Unknown signature?" "Not quite," said the comms officer. 5 ships. Intercept pattern. "Any allied fleet within jump range?" Gordon asked. "Negative. Nearest Terran unit is 18 hours out." Spencer's jaw locked. "They waited, tracked us, picked their window." Gordon's voice went flat. "Or someone made sure we'd be alone." He stared at the tactical display. No declarations, no grand offense. Just pressure. Containment. A quiet example. They thought they'd cornered a relic, and they were wrong. "All stations, red line, weapons live." Spencer's tone turned iron. "We engage?" Gordon didn't blink. "We survive." Across the Valiant Dragon, red warning strips lit the deck. No panic, no shouting, just motion. Fluid, trained, ready. They'd been here before, not with backup and not with permission, but never unready. Outside the viewport, 5 ships closed in, tight, methodical, overconfident. Spencer muttered, "If this goes bad, we're a footnote." 1 line in a committee file. Reese Gordon's answer was quiet steel. "Then let's make the line burn." The stars lit with incoming fire, and the Valiant Dragon didn't retreat. It accelerated, not out of desperation, but defiance. The first strike didn't land on shields. It tore through the outer communication mast. Blunt, surgical, intentional. A warning. Captain Reese Gordon watched the tactical display update in real time, eyes hard, breath even. Around him, the bridge crew moved like parts of a single organism, fast, calm, practiced. Tyler Spencer stood just to his right, voice low but urgent. 4 of them circling, the 5th's holding back, command ship maybe, or waiting to mop up. Good, Gordon replied. It'll be the first to burn. Another impact, this one against the dorsal plating. No breach, but the vibration crawled through the hull like a heartbeat skipping a beat. Spencer spoke again. They're not trying to kill us, not yet. They're testing how long we'll last. No, Gordon murmured. They're testing how long we'll beg. He leaned forward, keyed in a sequence on his console. Prepare maneuver Delta 11. We'll punch through their right flank. Make them think we're trying to run. Spencer's mouth twitched upward. And then? Gordon's voice was made of steel. We fold them from behind. The valiant dragon banked hard, sleek despite its armor, and launched into an arc of fire and ash. Plasma streaked from its side turrets, forcing 2 of the surrounding vessels to scatter. Inside, the inertial dampeners struggled to keep pace. Sparks danced from overloaded relays. No one flinched. Spencer barked out orders. Forward batteries, converge. Keep them thinking we're limping. 2 pirate ships moved in close, scenting blood. Their mistake. From below the hull, the valiant dragon's ventral plasma cannon activated. Hot, silent, and sudden. The first enemy ship vanished in a burst of blinding light. The second tried to pivot. It failed. A focused ion burst ruptured its propulsion array. It drifted, crippled, into the void. Cheers erupted on the bridge, but not from Gordon. He stood still, eyes locked on the remaining 3 ships, which now pulled back slightly. Not retreating, recalculating. Spencer glanced at him. They're thinking again. Too late, Gordon said. We're not. He keyed a new command. Initiate ghost pulse. Cut our signature. Prepare the coil. Spencer frowned. That puts everything into one shot. If we miss... We won't. The lights dimmed. The ship went silent. Even power routing dropped below detection thresholds. On scanners, the valiant dragon vanished, just static in a starless stretch. From the enemy perspective, it looked like escape. It wasn't. On board, the crew watched the power coil surge, energy focused into one high-yield singularity burst, built for one use only. It could disable a command cruiser in 5 seconds or less. Target locked, Spencer whispered. Gordon's voice didn't rise. Fire. The blast tore from the ship like lightning swallowed by shadow. It hit the lead attacker amidships, not with explosion, but with silence. Systems died, lights failed. The enemy flagship ceased to exist as a threat. Gordon exhaled. 3 down, 2 limping. Spencer wiped sweat from his brow. We might just make it. But then, the sensor grid lit up again. More ships. 3 new signatures, no council ID, unknown origin, and sir... What? They're fast. Gordon cursed under his breath. Reinforcements. Spencer looked at him. This was never a raid. It's a test. We're the experiment. And then the valiant dragon shook, not from impact, from resonance. A pulse, subspace, old and strange, cut through every system. The display flickered, then reset. On screen, the new ships decloaked. But they weren't enemy, they weren't even Terran. Their shapes were smooth, radiant, light dancing along curved hulls of iridescent alloys. Not warships, but something close. Artillery woven with grace. Spencer stared. I know that design. Gordon nodded slowly. They're Eliari. A moment of stunned silence. Then a new voice cut through the comms, soft, clear, unmistakable. This is Commander Varian Kal of the Eliari Ascendancy. Pirate vessels, disengage. You are now under watch. Spencer's eyes widened. They came? Gordon leaned back in his chair, gaze never leaving the screen. They came. On the viewfinder, the Eliari ships moved, not with fury but precision. The 3 incoming pirate reinforcements were caught in a lattice of coordinated pulses. No explosions, no deaths, just surrender. The pirates vanished from the battlefield, and then just like that it was over. The valiant dragon drifted in silence. Damage reports running, medbays active, shields down. But they were still standing. A ping lit up Gordon's console. A private line. He accepted. The face of Adhor Tesh appeared, older now but unmistakably serene. "We did not forget," he said softly. "Not the day you found me. Not the moment you chose to act." Gordon nodded and added, "We didn't help you for this." "I know," Tesh replied. "That's why we came." The line closed. In the stillness of the aftermath, Tyler Spencer sat back and let out a long breath. "Sir?" "Yeah? What do we do now?" Gordon glanced at the stars. "We file the report." He paused. "And write a new definition of alliance." The stars had changed. Captain Reese Gordon stood alone on the Valiant Dragon's upper observation deck, staring through the transparent viewport as the last fragments of the enemy fleet drifted dead and cold across the fringe of orbit. The battle was over, but the silence that followed didn't feel like peace. Behind him, Tyler Spencer stepped in, uniform still streaked with plasma soot. "Telemetry cleanup complete," he reported. "No more hostiles in the sector. The Eliari secured the outer perimeter." Gordon didn't answer right away. "They came," he finally said. "They actually came." Spencer nodded. "I'm still trying to process that part." A day ago, their odds had been laughable. Surrounded, outgunned, with Earth's reinforcements 2 sectors too far. Then Adhor Tesh's people had emerged from folded space in a formation so precise, it made the Empire's war doctrine look like a child's tantrum. 12 vessels, elegant, silent, shaped like silver arcs of starlight, moved as one. The Eliari didn't fire in volleys. They sang through the vacuum in harmonic pulses, disabling without destruction, redirecting energy instead of matching it. Their fleet moved more like thought than war. Clean, absolute. And then, they vanished again. They'd stayed just long enough to help Earth survive, but not without leaving something behind. It hadn't arrived with fanfare. No declarations, no conditions. Just a quiet delivery, sealed in crystal and humming with intent. 2 hours earlier, aboard the Valiant Dragon's command chamber, a crystalline data core had been delivered by an Eliari drone, its casing humming softly in harmonic frequencies. No words, just resonance. Gordon and Spencer stood beside the decryption console while the onboard AI parsed the data stream. Spencer frowned. "No language markers, they didn't send us a report." "No," Gordon murmured, narrowing his eyes at the glowing hologram forming above the core. "They sent us directions." The projection showed a region of space not charted in any current council maps. A dead zone, a black vector marked centuries ago during early expansion, Zone Theta 6, closed due to navigational hazard. But now the image pulsed with new telemetry, strange gravimetric shears, microbursts of radiation shaped like code, and a signature at the center, identical to the first distress beacon they'd picked up from Adhor Tesh's ruined colony. Spencer leaned in. "That's impossible. This is 3 sectors deeper than the original Eliari coordinates. They never said they had another outpost out there." "They didn't," Gordon said, "because it never belonged to them." They both stared. Then Spencer whispered, "You think it's what sent the message before Adhor ever called?" The AI confirmed it quietly. "Signal match, 93.2% compatibility. Source, unknown. Pre-council." Gordon stepped back. The Eliari hadn't just come to repay a debt. They came because something else had echoed through the dark again. And whatever it was, they'd hoped the humans would understand what they had to do next. Back in the present, Spencer returned from the console. "Updated star charts are ready. If we jump now, we can hit the Theta 6 vector in 16 hours. Gordon didn't move. "What about command?" Spencer gave a half smile. They're sending a diplomatic apology package to the LERI and pretending it was all pre-approved. Typical politics. Gordon finally let out a breath. Good. Let them. Meanwhile, he turned to the helm and spoke with the quiet confidence of a man who'd already made the call. Set course for Theta 6, full stealth, no signal, no trail. Spencer paused. You're really going, aren't you? We didn't ignore the first signal, Gordon said. We're sure as hell not ignoring this one. The ship's engines rumbled softly beneath them. Another mystery. Another silence waiting to be cracked open. And far ahead, in the void no one charted, something pulsed again. Not a message this time, a response. The Theta 6 system wasn't listed on any star charts newer than 100 years. What few entries existed were fragmented, mostly flagged with outdated mining surveys and class null viability tags. In other words, a dead system. But the moment the Valiant Dragon breached the outer edge, every system on board lit up red. Tyler Spencer's fingers froze over the tactical console. Sir, we're being scanned. By what? Gordon didn't raise his voice, but his eyes sharpened. That's just it, Spencer said. There's no energy signature, no source, but the scan's adaptive. Every time we try to mask, it adjusts. The ship's AI, ARQOS, spoke next. Its voice, usually neutral, carried a hint of something close to unease. I have encountered scanning patterns of this depth only once, during the Warbreaker analysis. This is more refined. Is it hostile? Gordon asked. The pause, then. Not yet, but it's not passive either, it's watching. The bridge fell quiet. On the forward screen, Theta 6's central star flickered strangely, like a strobe just out of sync with itself. A series of dead planetoids orbited in jagged vectors, some shattered into trails of debris. And in the middle of that debris field was a structure. Half buried in the gravity-warped husk of a broken moon, it shimmered. Not in light, but in attention. Gordon felt it before he saw it clearly. A monument or a station, maybe both, maybe neither. What the hell is that? Spencer whispered. The screen auto-zoomed. Lines, geometric folds, a circular surface like an iris, and engraved upon it unmistakably the symbol of Antheus, a triangle bisected by a vertical line. Gordon's eyes narrowed. We've seen that before. Spencer nodded. On Ador Tesh's medallion. Put us into a slow arc. I want a clean pass, no sudden moves. And prep a probe. Arcos interrupted. I advise against entering the debris field. The gravity differentials are inconsistent. We could send the probe, Gordon said, cutting the AI off gently. If this thing's been watching us, let's see what happens when we watch back. The drone launched, spiraling through fractured stone and metal. Spencer tracked its telemetry in silence, shoulders tense. The moment the probe neared the structure, the ship's lights dimmed. Arcos flickered, and every screen on the Valiant Dragon went black, then pulsed once. A message appeared. Not words, not symbols, an image, a human eye. Drawn in etched crystal. A date beneath it, long before Earth launched its first satellite. No one spoke. Spencer stepped back from his console. Is that from us? Gordon said nothing, not out of fear, but calculation. He was already thinking 3 steps ahead. Arcos spoke instead. Quiet, measured, reverent. Activation level Sigma. We were not first. We were not alone. We were only next. The eye faded and the systems returned, but the silence that followed stayed too long. Like the room itself was waiting for something to be said. Something no one wanted to say first. Gordon looked back at the screen. They knew we'd come. And in the deepest part of his gut, he felt it. This wasn't a mission anymore, it was a summons. The Valiant Dragon remained in low-drift orbit, hull humming softly under the gravitational tension bleeding from the fractured moon. The structure embedded there hadn't moved. Captain Gordon stood at the center of the bridge, one hand resting on the console railing, eyes locked on the forward display. The image of the eye was gone, but it hadn't faded from memory. Not his, not Spencer's, not anyone's. "Sir," Spencer said quietly, "I ran a spectral trace on that engraving. It's etched in silicon crystal, using micro-resonant harmonic vibration. That tech isn't human, but the eye was drawn by one," Gordon finished. Spencer nodded. "Or for one." Silence again, not the tense kind, the listening kind. Arcos, reinitialized but clearly still adapting to what had occurred, offered its analysis. "The structure is emitting no overt signal, but it's responsive. Every time we scan it, it scans us back, precisely 1 second later, using the exact same parameters." "A mirror?" Spencer asked. Gordon's brow furrowed. "Not just that. It's instructive, like it's teaching us to ask the right questions." From behind the tactical array, a subtle chirp echoed. The drone they'd sent, still adrift, had begun transmitting on its own. No commands, no external triggers. Just a loop, one signal repeating, buried in the frequency layers, a sequence of tones. Not music, not language, and something older, something coded in resonance. Spencer decoded the harmonics and ran them through the ship's linguistics interpreter. The result wasn't comforting. "We remember what you forgot." He turned to Gordon. "Sir, what exactly is this place?" Gordon didn't answer immediately. Instead, he moved toward the briefing station, called up the shared Elyari cultural archive that Ador Tesh had helped the crew install months earlier. He searched for symbols, for structures, for signs, and there it was. A temple, not a fortress, not a weapon, an Elyari listening vault, built not to speak but to receive. "According to Tesh's data," Gordon said, "this is an archive relay. Elyari engineers constructed them across systems they believed to be historically significant, places where something ancient had passed through." Spencer frowned. "You're saying this moon was visited?" "No," Gordon said, turning. "I'm saying this entire system was marked." That's when the ship lurched. Barely perceptible, just a flicker in the inertia dampeners. "Gravity spike," Spencer reported, "localized right beneath the structure." Gordon didn't flinch. "We're not moving." "Captain, the structure is turning." On the screen, the monument's iris-like surface was rotating slowly, aligning along a new vector. Toward them. But it didn't fire. It didn't signal. It simply looked. Then the transmission resumed. This time only one word, rendered in Terran glyphs: cold, sharp, final. "Remember." Spencer swallowed. "It's not just a command, is it?" Gordon didn't blink. "Number, it's a warning." He turned to the crew, voice steady. "We pull back. Full reverse drift. Don't provoke it, but leave a signal. Something Tesh's people would recognize." Spencer nodded. The Valiant Dragon backed away from the monument, its engines silent, its lights dimmed. And in the dark, as Theta 6 faded behind them, that ancient vault remained. Still watching, still remembering. The briefing chamber aboard the Valiant Dragon was silent except for the low whir of system interfaces and the measured hum of the gravity stabilizers. Captain Reese Gordon stood before the primary display, arms crossed, his eyes locked on the slowly rotating sigil of the Council's Outer Rim Treaty. A treaty that, until yesterday, had meant something. "Explain it again," Gordon said. Tyler Spencer tapped the console beside him. "Relay nodes along Sector 9B went dark in sequence. Not sabotage, something else. They didn't explode, they just stopped responding." Gordon frowned. "Blackout protocol?" "No alert. They were taken offline from outside, but with internal authorization codes." Spencer leaned forward, hesitating only briefly. "We're not looking at a failure, we're looking at a purge." Before either could speak again, the room's lighting dipped, briefly, but not from the system failure. The dim shift came from outside. Gordon turned toward the narrow viewport. In the distance, drifting just above the gas clouds of Farallon 2, a dozen ships hung in formation. Council ships, heavy ones. "They're early," he muttered. Council's not subtle, Spencer replied. No, Gordon said, this isn't strength, it's a warning. The silence between fleets spoke louder than any volley. The diplomatic fallout from the Eliari's rescue had reached its boiling point. Then came the call. Encrypted. Tagged. Origin, Eliari Beacon. Classification, Mutual Aid Directive. Adhor-Tesh appeared on the center feed, his features calm, centered, yet beneath that, something sharper was beginning to emerge. There is movement within your council, Tesh said. We've intercepted fragments, conversations. Some of your leaders want to isolate your fleet. Others may not permit you to return. Gordon exhaled slowly. That's not news, but it changes the tempo. We offer assistance, Tesh said. Not soldiers, insight. There are patterns in your command structure. Fractures visible from orbit. If they break, they won't break clean. Gordon nodded. Understood, Spencer? Spencer glanced at the overlay. Looks like we're about to be declared out of position. Gordon tapped a silent command. Then we prep in silence if Earth cuts the tether and we don't drift. We steer. A new symbol appeared on the corner of the tactical screen. Not Council, not Eliari. A slowly rotating triangle bisected by a single line. Not a signal, a shadow. Adhor-Tesh glanced at it from his side of the comms. That mark is older than your archives. We've seen it too, Gordon said, eyes narrowing, but never in active use. Spencer leaned closer. Wait, was that the one from the artifact logs? Gordon didn't answer, because just then the console lit up with something colder. An unregistered ping, embedded inside the Eliari signal. One word. A phrase not in English, not in Eliari tongue. And yet somehow, known. Gordon whispered it aloud before realizing why it felt wrong in his throat. Sigma wake. Nothing glitched. But for a breath, time bent sideways. A hum. A breath. A pause long enough to question whether something had heard them back. And then the feed returned to normal, as if nothing had happened. Spencer turned slowly. Captain, what the hell was that? That wasn't them, was it? Tesh's image was unreadable now. No. But there was a flicker in his eye. He had seen it before. The valiant dragon drifted at the edge of disputed space, its hull patched but not pristine. The stars outside pulsed faintly through polarized view panels, an illusion of calm that no longer fooled anyone aboard. Captain Reese Gordon stood with arms folded behind his back, staring at a live tactical feed of the Helios corridor. No ships had crossed in 3 days. That wasn't peace, that was a feint. Spencer leaned beside the console, jaw tight. Council fleets are massing beyond the neutral shell. No official declaration, just movement, like they're daring us to blink. Gordon didn't reply at first. He tapped the interface, dragging a half-shadowed icon into view. TCA Norvet, an Earth-linked command carrier that had gone dark 20 hours prior. No wreckage, no distress, just vanished. They're drawing us out, Gordon said, and command's too slow to respond. We're alone. Spencer straightened. We've been alone before. Gordon looked over and for a moment something unreadable passed through his expression. Not fear, calculation. Last time we had a reason to believe someone was listening. He didn't say the name, but both men were thinking it. Adhor-Tesh, down in the lower medbay, converted now into an auxiliary signal node. 2 techs monitored a long-range sub-channel. The relay was tuned to a frequency no other ship used anymore, layered with Eliari harmonic code. A dead channel. Until it wasn't. At 14:06 system time, the signal cracked. One tone. A chord of layered resonance, not digital, organic, intelligent. And then a single symbol appeared. 3 interlocking arcs within a spiraling helix. The Eliari seal. The tech nearly knocked over his stool. Sir, relay lock. Eliari signature. High bandwidth compression. We have contact. Arcos processed the signal in silence, then with a tone just short of reverence. The Sigma marker in Theta 6 maintained a quantum bond. When our ship entered a high threat vector without Council authorization, the threshold was crossed. The response was automatic. The room above trembled subtly as Gordon arrived. He leaned over the console with quiet urgency. Decrypt and expand. Play it through direct. The signal unfolded like a blooming spiral. No words at first. Just a slow, rising tone. So familiar it felt like memory. Then a voice layered itself atop the chord. Calm. Ancient. The Watchers awaken, and we remember the ones who stayed. Spencer's voice cracked. That's them. Location? Gordon asked. The tech pointed to a series of flickering coordinates. 2 sectors out, and they're not hiding. It's a fleet. Gordon narrowed his eyes. On approach? Direct course heading for the Helios corridor. Spencer frowned. That's a war front. No, Gordon said. That's where we're outnumbered. The screen shifted again. This time a visual. Dozens, maybe hundreds, of LERE vessels. They shimmered like stars pulled through crystal, their engines humming with resonance fields. And at the center, a single ship marked with a symbol etched in gold along its hull, the sigil of return. That night on the mess deck, the crew gathered without orders. No ceremony, just stillness. Gordon stood at the front of the room. He didn't need to raise his voice. They remembered. No one asked who. No one had to. We sent no beacon, made no call. But we acted when no one else did. And now, years later, they answer not as survivors, but as allies. A pause, a long one. Then Spencer, half grinning, raised his cup. To Adhor. The room echoed it back. Quiet. Honest. To Adhor. Above them, the stars rippled with incoming warp signatures. The valiant dragon held its line, silent, steady. But for the first time in a long while, it was not alone. Then on the main screen, barely visible within the spiral of the LERE seal, a secondary glyph shimmered into view. Brief, faint, familiar. Sigma Protocol. It wasn't activated. It was acknowledging itself, as if some ancient protocol recognized what had just happened. Then the message came. Not from a voice, not from a system, but from the silence itself. You thought you were forgotten, but some debts live in the silence and some answers don't arrive. Until the question is already fading. Days after the LERE's return, the valiant dragon drifted beneath the shadow of a shattered moon. Hull lights dimmed to avoid detection. From the command deck, Captain Reese Gordon stared at the data feeds projected along the forward viewport, lines of movement mapped in silent arcs. They weren't just outnumbered, they were outflanked. The Arakar had emerged along the outer rim 2 cycles ago, non-aligned, silent, and hostile to both Council and Fringe worlds alike. No demands, no diplomacy, just pressure. The Arakar weren't advancing yet, but their ships encircled the region like wolves sniffing at a wounded rival. Spencer tapped in a silent command beside him. Still no response from High Command. The subspace relays past Uranus 3 are likely jammed. I know, Gordon said quietly. They're boxing us in by masking the outbound channels, not just movement. He turned to face the younger officer. How many civilians did we pull from the outer habitats? 367 confirmed. Most are bunkered in the lower med deck. If the Arakar break formation and hit us directly, they'll target propulsion and environmental fast surgical. They've studied us. Gordon's jaw tensed. This isn't a threat. It's preparation. He moved toward the navigation interface and brought up their fallback trajectories. There were only 2, and one had a 12% survival probability. Spencer lowered his voice. Sir, if this goes sideways... Gordon didn't let him finish. Then we buy them time. A beat passed in silence, and at this moment, the alert pinged. A single vessel entering the outer grid. Spencer's brows pulled down. That can't be right. No heat profile, no warp bloom. Gordon narrowed his eyes. Display it. The screen shimmered. A ship resolved. Not Arakar, not Council. A shimmering lattice of unfamiliar alloys, pulsing with a bioluminescent rhythm that looked almost alive. Spencer leaned in, stunned. Is that? A soft chime interrupted him. A transmission. No encryption. Simple band. Clear signal. We heard the silence and remembered the voice that broke ours. The bridge went still. Spencer looked to Gordon. Is that the Eliari? Gordon didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the ship approaching. It wasn't alone. 3 more blinked into existence behind it, each one bearing the same crystalline signature. Then 5, then a dozen, then more. They didn't arrive with weapons, they arrived with intent, and without warning, the Arakar formation began to shift. Their warpath halted, not from fear, but confusion. They didn't understand what had just happened, but the humans did. Spencer's voice dropped. They came back. Gordon, still composed, nodded once. Of course they did. Down in the med deck where the civilians sheltered, the lights flickered momentarily. Among them, a child clutched a datapad playing archived footage of an old council session, one where a tall, silver-skinned alien had once said, "Your kindness was not strategy. It was choice. That is what makes it powerful." The words looped again, and somewhere across every quiet corridor of the Valiant Dragon, the hum of a new presence whispered into the structure. Gentle, calming, real. The Eliari had returned, not as reinforcements, as family. The Arakar didn't fire, not because they feared retaliation, but because for the first time, they weren't sure what stood before them. The Eliari fleet shimmered in silent formation, no weapons visible, no aggressive maneuvers. Their vessels moved like thought, precise fluid hovering between dimensions, partially phased, impossible to lock onto with standard targeting. Captain Reese Gordon stood on the command deck of the Valiant Dragon, flanked by Spencer, watching as a dozen more Eliari ships manifested from the surrounding dark. What had once been a losing scenario now bent toward the unknown, and unknown always favored the side that understood it best. The Eliari didn't come to fight, they came to answer. Where the Council issued orders and the Arakar imposed silence, the Eliari believed in response, in presence, in memory. And this time, memory was the sharpest weapon in the room. Spencer leaned closer to the console. "Sir, they're broadcasting something." "Let's hear it." The bridge lights dimmed as the transmission fed through. It wasn't words, not at first, just tones. Frequencies layered like music and mathematics woven into one. Then, in Terran Standard, "We are not here to replace your strength, only to remind you it is seen." Gordon's voice dropped. "That's Adhor's cadence." Spencer turned, stunned. "You think he's on one of those ships?" "I don't think," Gordon said. "I know." Within the central vessel of the Eliari formation, Adhor Tesh stood at a crystalline helm. No controls. Just interface threads drifting near his open hands. His eyes shimmered, older now, tempered, but unflinching. The other Eliari aboard stood with quiet purpose. They had not come to conquer, or to posture. They had come because the one they called the Chosen of Mercy had remembered who lifted him from death when no one else would. And they had remembered, too. "Hold formation," Adhor spoke gently. "No weapon signatures, no preemption." He reached toward the console, his motion bringing up a spectral map of the Arakar fleet. Vulnerabilities bloomed in soft pulses, but Adhor didn't highlight them. He highlighted the spaces between them. "Send the message again." Back on the Valiant Dragon, Gordon watched as the Arakar ships began slowly drifting apart, not withdrawing, not attacking, waiting, confused. And then a second Eliari signal pulsed. This one contained something new. Visual. A record. A decades-old clip of Gordon pulling Adhor's broken form from the rubble of that colony moon. Spencer's voice. The medbay stasis. The words exchanged. "We don't care if you're not human. You asked for help. That's enough. The Arakar fleet saw it. So did every ship still listening across the quadrant. A second later, the Arakar began to disengage. Without a shot fired, they turned one by one and blinked into subspace. The moment passed in silence. Spencer leaned forward, awestruck. They left. Gordon didn't smile. He just nodded. We weren't the threat anymore. On the main screen, a final message arrived, and it was from Adhor. You gave us shelter, now we offer the same. If ever the void forgets you, we will remind it. And attached to the signal, embedded deep inside, was a phrase. Short, rooted in the Eliari tongue. But translated, it spoke directly to the moment. The gift returned is never debt, it is memory preserved. Later, when the Terran Council reviewed the engagement logs, they couldn't explain why the Arakar had withdrawn. No fleet had fired, no demands were issued, only a memory had been shared, and it had rewritten the outcome. The war ended in silence, not from devastation but recognition. Across fractured battlefields and darkened council chambers, the final act of the valiant dragon and its unexpected allies was already being dissected, recorded, whispered, but none of that mattered now. Because in Earth's upper orbit, just above the scarred but still standing ship, a diplomatic vessel shimmered into view. Eliari design, etched with tracer lines of living light. On the command deck, Reese Gordon stood tall, uniform torn, knuckles bruised, posture unshaken. Before him, the main display flickered to life. Adhor Tesh filled the screen. No title, no ceremony, just the quiet presence of someone who no longer needed to explain himself. Captain, Tesh said, our sovereignty has voted unanimously. The motion passed before I finished speaking. Gordon blinked. And what was the motion? To make official, what was already felt. Behind him, a radiant symbol emerged. New, freshly forged, part Terran, part Eliari. A shared sigil. Not of dominance, and of acknowledgement. Across the dragon's deck, stunned silence gave way to something else. Not cheers, not applause. Respect. Spencer stared at the screen. They didn't join our alliance, he whispered. They formed one. Gordon stepped closer to the display. Why us? Adhor's expression softened. Because once, when no one else answered, you did. A pause. Quiet. Waited. Then Adhor added, voice low. Sometimes those who save you aren't the strongest. Just the first to care. It echoed through the bridge, through the relay networks, through the hearts of both species, and that was the activation glitch moment. In the lower decks, without cause or command, a comm panel glitched. One engineer swore the screen flickered just for a moment, with a symbol she didn't recognize. A human eye, sketched in a style centuries old, beside 3 Eliari glyphs and one ancient Terran word, remember. She blinked, and it vanished. She never reported it, but she never forgot, and neither did the stars.